So now I'm going to, that's hot, see? Hello, welcome back to Hardworking Man. Something a little bit different today. I'm taking this old jet ski trailer. I'm going to do some fabrication, some welding with my new Arcaptain welder, which I'm super excited, and you're going to see the first time to use it. And I'm going to tell you why I went with that as opposed to the old Hobart 135, which is what I used to use. And I am not a professional welder by any means. I've run 2 of the small spools through that Hobart, teaching myself from YouTube, and that's all I know. So we're gonna see, you're gonna watch firsthand my first run on the Arcaptain and see how it does. From the videos I've watched, I think it's gonna turn me into a decent welder for not knowing a ton about welding. I've done some research, I've looked into it, and we're gonna see how I do today. Now this is all part of the garage reorganization and setup so that I can work in the garage. That new Sunfire heater is awesome. In about 40 minutes, it took it from 32 degrees in here to 82 degrees. So that's how it's gonna save me money. It might not be cheaper to run than the Built Hard electric heater that I put in, but I don't have to run it all the time because it has so much heat output that I can heat it up in a short amount of time and come out here and work. And it's comfortably warm right now. So the plan today is taking this old jet ski trailer, like I said, removing the bunks for the jet skis, welding this into the back, getting an IBC Tote balance. We're also going to throw some new LED trailer lights on it because they don't work, and I have some bigger tires to put on it. Now, how I collect my syrup, or my sap, to make syrup is this 275-gallon IBC Tote. And when I had the RX 7320, I would use that, and even with that, without a counterweight, I smashed out the back window in my truck trying to load this into the bed to bring over to my buddy from Up to Something Outdoors, because he's the one who makes my syrup. Jonathan does a great job. I collect the sap, he cooks it all down, and he knows a lot about sugaring and making maple syrup. So check out Up to Something Outdoors. Now with the smaller tractor and not always wanting it up at the property, I'm going to mount this on the trailer so I can tow it through the woods, collect the sap, then hook it to the truck and take it over to Jonathan's place. I'm also going to work on this. This is a different cap that I cut the top off from, a funnel that I would use to fill easier, and a strainer basket. I'm going to put it all together into one piece so I can take the sealed lid off, put the strainer on when I'm collecting, and then swap it out, bring this in the house and clean it. That's going to work way better than what I used to do, which was put this in, and then if I just tried to pour into that, it would spill all over. Then I would put this funnel inside of it. It worked okay, but driving through the woods, this thing would clump around and everything. So I'm gonna cut this down. I already cut this down and this down, assemble it into one piece, and that should be so much nicer. All right, so one of the first things I'm gonna do is get these old rotten bunks off. I'm gonna use huge overkill of this 1/2-inch Milwaukee Impact. All these bolts are just rotten in there. I probably could just rip these bunks off. Some of them aren't even there anymore. And then my plan is, so it just snaps them all off, but my plan is to take these brackets off. I'm going to use the Bad Dog diamond grinding wheel on the Milwaukee grinder and grind these off on both sides. Then I've got that piece of square tubing that I'm going to put inside this channel, and I'm going to balance this tote when it's about 3/4 full so I have the tongue weight that I want. And then I'm going to use some of these to weld back on so that it holds the tote in place without having to always strap it down. New wiring, new taillights, new bigger tires, and probably something to stand on back here or some traction on the fenders, so when we go to dump into the tote, we can get up to a higher level and make it easier to dump. So first, we got to deconstruct and then rebuild. Now with that Arcaptain, it's the Mig200, and I'm really excited about it. I was going to use gas and solid wire for the first time ever, but like I said, I'm not an expert, and I didn't have the correct regulator, so I need to get a new one. But I had some old 035 flux core wire, and that welder can be used with flux core. It can be used with gas, it can be used stick, and it can TIG. It can do everything. And I'm going to do probably mostly the solid wire gas welding, shielded welding. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly if it's called something different, but the fact that I can do the flux core welding, and that's what I have, does come in handy. And the settings on that thing are one of the things I've struggled with welding, is knowing the power, the wire speed, all of that. And this thing sort of does it for you, and that's why I think I'll do a better job welding with it. Plus, it's a 200 amp instead of 135, so I can weld a little bit heavier stuff. It's an inverter welder. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I have an idea, but my whole idea, or my whole plan, is just to see how it works for somewhat of a beginner welder, so that you can know if maybe that's what you want to go with. It costs a lot less than like that Hobart 135 new, or a Miller, or a Lincoln. You know, not saying it's equal, but for someone like me, it might be the perfect welder. Maybe I will be reusing these. Oh, I got it coming loose, it looks like. You probably see on the back of the shirt there, Thumb Trailer, Sandusky, Michigan. I'm actually about to take this sweatshirt off, but I'm going to be heading up there because I got a new trailer coming, and they're going to get me some used tires for my bigger rims for this, so I can get those little baby tires off. Actually, I am going to keep this sweatshirt on until I'm done grinding to save the arms. Should be able to reuse these. I only need 4 of them, so if I can save 4, I'll be good. All right, now I will be talking a lot about the tools I'm using today because I'm working inside and I'm doing something different than I normally do. I'm not sponsored by these people, and not everything that I get do I love. But I like to share with people what I get that I like, that I would buy again, and what I get that I wouldn't. The Milwaukee power tools I love. I have bought every single Milwaukee tool I've ever owned by myself, full price. I just love them. I'd love it if they wanted to work with me because I think they make a great tool. This Bad Dog diamond wheel, it cuts and grinds. I love it. They're expensive. They're a lifetime guarantee. I would definitely buy one again. This one was supplied to me by Bad Dog Tools. The drill bits, on the other hand, I would not buy those with my own money. They're okay. That's about it. I was hoping for a lot more out of the drill bits. The grinding wheel, 100% a hardworking man approved so far. The drill bits, I was not as impressed. But this wheel is awesome. Now, I do have an affiliate link with Bad Dog Tools, and I would recommend checking out these diamond blades if you do cutting, grinding, welding. Cutting up IBC totes, this is the fastest, best way I've ever found. Sawzalls, the fiber wheels, none of that even come close. Maybe a plasma cutter. I would like a plasma cutter one day. Now, yes, I could get a bigger hammer, but I don't want to bend the frame on this trailer. So that's why I'm using a little framing nailer hammer. All right, so I've got all the brackets off. I'll clean those spots up. I'm hoping if this works well next summer to take it back apart and sandblast it all down and paint it so it lasts longer. I'm pretty sure I won't be able to fill a 275-gallon tote for weight purposes, but if I can get 150 plus gallons in there and still be okay, it'll be way easier than having to load and unload that IBC tote. Just hook to the trailer and go. So the next step is going to be figuring out where I need this bar. So I'm going to have to get that cut down. I'll put it in there loose, get the IBC tote on here, and then fill it with water so I can adjust back and forth where I need it for my tongue weight. Now this saw I have shown before. It's a Makita, but it's got a metal cutting blade on it instead of an abrasive wheel, similar to the diamond blade that I use on the grinder. If you're going to do anything with metal, because I don't do a ton, and I still think this was an awesome purchase. It cuts through steel nice, not all the hot sparks, and it cuts quick. So let's cut this down. 47 3/4 should be a touch long than what I need, and then I'll just trim it to get it perfect. Measure twice, cut 10 times. Now you cannot just take one of these blades and put it on your regular abrasive saws safely because they run at a much higher RPM, and you run the risk of doing some serious damage. So like I said, this should be a touch long. That's just sweet. Now I do have these wires in here which are all going to be replaced, and I'll probably run them along this tube instead of all the way to the back. They use these terrible wire connectors, which is probably a good reason none of my taillights work. I use all the shrink tube type that seal out a lot more moisture. But to get the IBC Tote slightly forward of the axle, I am thinking my cross member piece is going to have to be right around here where the taillight mounts are. And that is about perfect with one cut. So now I'm going to push it up to the top, put something under it, put the IBC Tote on here, go outside, fill it with water so we can set this back piece where we need it for our tongue weight, because I want the drain spout coming out the back so when I clean this tote I can tip the trailer up and get a full drain on it. Alright, so looking at my scrap metal tote, I had this little piece that I had left over from a different project, and it is almost the perfect thickness, so I'm going to cut 2 chunks off it to put under there, hold it in place, and when we weld that, we'll put this under and weld it in as an extra support, just in case my welding isn't quite professional grade yet. So when I'm out here working, I'll use the Sunfire to get the garage up to temp. Then I just throw on the Built Hard because it holds a nice temperature in here. And I feel like that way I don't have to have the Sunfire running, even though it doesn't have fumes, but I don't have to worry about carbon monoxide. I'm going to get a carbon monoxide detector, but I don't have one yet. But I found that combination to work really well for me. So let me get this metal shavings cleaned up. Woo! Then get the trailer out there, get the IBC Tote filling, and then we will start on the funnel system. Now you can see I have outlets in this wall. I do not have them wired yet or hooked up, but I do have the 221 hooked up for the welder, so that'll be ready to go. This is the most organized I've ever been, and it's still a mess. Alright, so now I need to get this tote up here without knocking my bar out. With the drain to the back. So now that I have it on here, I want that back mounting bar to be even with this, but I'm going to fill it with a decent amount of water to get that tongue weight right, and then figure out where to weld that bar in. Alright, so we got the IBC Tote out in the driveway filling to get that tongue weight right. Now I'm going to use that diamond blade, and I'm going to cut the bottom of the strainer off, and hopefully my plan works. Dead battery. We're almost there. Dead battery. I gotta get my charging station set up. Dead battery. So close. Oh, 2 bars. This should get us through. right, so I cleaned that stainless steel funnel top up with a wire brush, wire wheel, so that there's no loose metal. Now I've got it in the oven at 270 degrees, and my thought process is I can put it in here and sort of melt it in before I seal it with the glue, and then this funnel will go on top epoxied in. So let's see if this works. Rachel doesn't know I'm using her oven or her oven mitts. Let's see if I got it hot enough. So for melting plastic, you need between 250 and 500 degrees, and it appears 260, 270 is not hot enough. So back into the oven, we'll crank it to 350. All right, let's try it again with a little more temperature. It's melting in a little bit here. I think that is going to work perfectly. All right, one more heat treatment. We'll call it a heat treatment, and I think we'll be good. Make sure there's no plastic on here. Rachel lit the oven on fire this morning. We won't talk about that though. I gotta make sure I don't light it on fire. I might have ruined her gloves. Now she's gonna know because it's on video. I actually also forgot that I was filling that IBC Tote out in the driveway with water, and I was like, oh my gosh, that thing's probably overflowing. But luckily our water's slow, and I went out there and it wasn't yet. So now I did something Rachel always yells at me for not doing. I set an alarm in my phone so I remember to keep going out there and checking, because my ADHD otherwise would probably have it overflowing. All right, I can't be the only one who does that when something's hot, and to see if it's still hot, you just touch it. And if it's still too hot, you're gonna pay the price, but that's what I do every time. So now that I have this melted in, I can get it lined up with how it fits, which I believe is probably going to be the last position. Well, it will be the last position I try, but you know what I mean. So those little rods melted in, and now I'm going to take some PC plumbing epoxy, and I am going to epoxy this ring in to seal it off and hold it into place, and then the blue funnel on top. All right, so anyone who's used this style of epoxy, JB Weld, there's a few different brands that make it. I'm always like, do you do it with gloves on? Because it's sort of a pain, but I don't really want it all over myself. So do you guys use gloves or do it bare hand and then deal with cleaning your hand? I mean, I don't know. It's probably better for me to use gloves. We'll see how this works. I've had it for a while. I am hoping I can still get it blended up. Oh, I didn't have to cut it. It was already pre-cut. But this will attach the mesh to the screw top lid that I cut out, and then I'll get the funnel, and that was always one of the biggest pains, was dumping the bags or the buckets into the IBC tote, because it would spill everywhere. You don't want to get the debris in there. There shouldn't be much this year. I'm only running bags, no buckets. But later in the year, you start getting the bugs and the moths and whatnot. And with this, it'll be clean. And when Jonathan from Up to Something Outdoors sucks it out and then ROs it, he won't have to worry about any debris getting into his RO system before he boils it. So I'm trying to come up with a more efficient system that's going to work for years to come. All right, so I'm going to break this into 4, I guess, somewhat equal parts, because I don't believe I have enough of this to do the entire perimeter, but I don't need to, because the funnel is what's going to seal. I just need this mesh to stick to that threaded part. So now I will hopefully get this into position. And here is where these gloves are sort of a pain. I am always anal about how perfect stuff looks, even though it's completely irrelevant. That's going to drive me nuts, even though I'll never see it. That is not a perfectly smooth bead, but that's okay, I guess, right? All right, so as you can see, this project has taken quite a bit of time because when I started this morning, it was 32 degrees, and now it's a beautiful sunny day. But I got about probably, 180 gallons in here. 175 mark is right here, 200 here, about 180. So I think I've got a decent, I guess, idea of what it's going to be like when it fills up. Probably 200 gallons is going to be the max, but my tongue weight, I mean, it's decently heavy, so it should tow good, but not too heavy. I'll probably slide it back maybe a half an inch, so I'll get that marked, get the water drained out of this, back into the garage so I can weld that piece into place. Come on, girl. Now we'll get this drained back into the shop and that back piece and the brackets welded into place. This is why I wanted to have it so the drain is on the back so I can raise the front and drain it completely. So my son Nate, who was just filming that, said, "Dad, why'd you fill it up just to drain it?" And the answer is so I could get that tongue weight right. I wanted to get this thing built correctly the first time. I also had some peroxide in there with the water to help re-sanitize it before I collect sap. All right, so while that tote drains, and right before I bring it back in here to get that bar into place and get some grinding and welding done, the last step for the funnel is to attach this top piece. So I've got another thing. This is actually JB plastic weld, but I'm thinking it should work fine. I'm going to probably use 3/4 of it. I've got the gloves on again, which, as you know, I don't love because they make it harder to work, but it's probably better for me. So let's get this attached, and then our funnel will be done once it cures. None of this epoxy will actually come into contact with the sap, so this is a food grade funnel. I've got a food grade IBC tote. The stainless steel obviously is food grade. So everything should be good to go. All right, so we're back in the garage. IBC Tote off, and we know where we need this back bar so that we can have adequate tongue weight, a balanced load, and get this trailer build underway. And more importantly, I'm about to show you guys my expert welding skills. So let's get this cleaned up with a wire wheel, get the paint off, clean metal, get that square tubing into place, and then the brand new welder comes out. Let's see how I can run it. All right, she's all cleaned up. I think I know where I want it. So now I need to get it into place, weld it, brace it, put the all the mounts on, get the tote on, New tail lights because I'm going to do that after I do all my welding. And we're going to be in business, baby. Not what I was hoping for. Let's make a few adjustments and see what we can do. That looks a lot better. Let's take this one off and redo it. Oop. Better. Still not pro welder. Let's keep working on it. Take that one off, try again. Now that is so much better. I'll show you guys what I did, but let me finish this weld because that, for me, is really good. Okay, so if you're a real welder or a welder with experience, that might not be that impressive to you, but that is by far the best weld I've ever done. I'll do a little bit of grinding and that'll be pretty decent, I think, and it should hold. All right, so now that this is in place and solid, we're going to mount these, which is the back bar of the IBC tote's going to go in, and then we'll mount some up here for the front. Get the IBC tote on. I'm going to get those braces underneath just for some extra support because I'm still learning how to weld. So let me clean this up. I've already cleaned these brackets up. I got to clean this square tubing up, and then we'll get those welded on. And here in a minute, I'll show you setting up that Arcaptain Mig200 welder and why I think not only for people that know how to weld, but people like me that are learning how to weld, why that's so much easier. Ha! I ground the wrong spot. I guess it's a good thing that I marked both sides. I do make mistakes, even though Rachel thinks I'm perfect. Now once I get these welded on, I will bend them to how I need them, which will help me test my welds. I'm like a real life welder. Let's hit it again. I mean, that's not going anywhere. I'm pretty happy with myself. Well, with this new welder especially. That one was hot. That I was leaning on. This is fun. I like this. All right, a little long on my stick out there. Luckily, I have some Mig welding pliers. Just so I can be a professional welder. These are the best welds I've ever done in my life. They're not good for a real welder, probably, but for someone like me, this is awesome. That's gonna hold. I love it. Now I was gonna put these blocks underneath here to help hold it, but I'm pretty confident in my welds with this new Arcaptain Mig200 welder. So much so that I'm not gonna put those there because this is gonna hold. I can see the penetration that I'm getting. I'll show you some of that on the outside of the thing where you can see that it's heating that metal. Like I said, I'm still learning, but I know that I wasn't getting that before. So now I'm going to, that's hot. See, I told you. Whew, I told you that I was not a welder. But I am now able to weld. And these, I mean, for me, I'm excited. Look at this. Well, I'll show you it, but you know, when you're using the Flux core, you got to brush it up because it does have that, whatever it is on it. I guess the, I don't even know right now. I'm just excited about my welds. I mean, for me, they're not perfect. I probably couldn't get hired as a welder. No, I couldn't get hired as a welder, but, I mean, these are nice. Elliot from Everything Elliot asked me, are you a welder or a grinder? And I'm slowly becoming more of a welder than a grinder. I'm going to do a little bit of grinding to make these a little prettier, even though it doesn't really matter, because ultimately if it holds is what matters. But I'm going to bend these out, get the tote in here so I can see where these front ones need to go. So these back ones will hold it from sliding forward and backwards, and the front ones I'm going to put the other way to keep it from shifting right to left. And we are almost ready to go collect maple syrup sap. Be honest, for someone who is not a welder, that doesn't look too bad, does it? You can be honest in your comments. I know I'm still learning. Come on, I can't even film. You can be honest in your comments. How does that look from the welders out there? This one, not the best, a little chunky, but it's going to hold. And I am extremely happy with what I've been able to do with this welder. Let me show you what it is and how I set it up. Let me open these up so this tote will go on it easier. I mean, some of my old welds, that right there would have broke them off, if I'm going to be honest. This thing isn't going anywhere. It's still warm all the way out through here, which tells me I got some good heat transfer through the metal. All right, so here's why I say this welder is good for not only people that know what they're doing, but people like me that are learning, because it's got, I guess it's synergistic or synergy welding. Let me show you what it is. So to set this up, you can set it. So here is MIG. You hit mode, and you can have MMA, TIG, MIG with a spool gun, which I have for aluminum, and regular MIG welding. You then pick your size of wire, which I have .35. press this button here, and you can hit CRNI, don't know what that is. AIMG, don't know what that is. FICO2, don't know what that is. FEMIX, oh, CO2. So this is what I would normally be under. Just, I'm guessing FE is probably steel with mixed gas, which I will have eventually, and then flux core. To me, that's the easiest for beginners like myself. MIG welding, 035, flux core. So this is when you pull the trigger, it welds. Then this is you pull the trigger, it starts, pull the trigger, it stops, and this is spot welding. Now synergistic, I should have read the manual, but you can turn that on or off. When you turn it on, you set MIG, 035 flux, that, and it sets your settings for you. So that first pass I did of welding, it was a little bit off, so I just turned this up a little bit. So I went to +1 right there on the voltage. I went a little bit up on the amperage, up to 85, and then here for the hardness of steel, hard or soft, I turned it down just a little bit below standard, and that's where I got my weld. So much easier than what I used to do. FE might be iron. Rachel's super smart, which is metal to me. Iron is metal. I don't know. Steel. Yeah, iron is steel. Okay. Rachel's here helping me. So with the Hobart, if you know what you're doing, and there are charts that can show you this stuff, like in here there's a bunch of information. In here there is a bunch of information. But I am not a bunch of information guy. I'm a, here, let's put it close and see what we can do guy. So with this is how you set your power, I believe, and your wire feed speed, which I thought if you were welding and your wire was burning off, you needed to make it faster. I learned you need to make it slower, stuff like that. Like this is just, to me, more difficult to set and learn, where this Arcaptain Mig200 just made it so easy. And like I said, those are by far and away the best welds I've ever done. All right, so in true hardworking man fashion, if you know me, this would make perfect sense to you. I now need to weld 2 brackets on where I took them off from because that's just where they landed. So now these brackets, I'm going to weld like this over here and on the other side. So this will keep the tote from going side to side. Like I mentioned, those will keep it from front to back, and then I'll just drill through, put a bolt through, and it'll hold down without straps or anything. So that will be nice. Then onto the wiring. So I'm hoping that because you can see here the heat transfer through the steel, that I got decent penetration. And I beat on this thing with a sledgehammer, so it should hold. If it doesn't, we'll try again, but I think it's going to. Woo! Ah, come here, pliers. All right, so I said I was gonna maybe hit some of these welds with a grinder to make them look nicer. I'm not going to. I started this morning, it was dark, it was 32 degrees. It then got nice and sunny. It's now dark and getting cold again, so it's nice to be able to be in the garage with heat for projects like this. I plan on getting 3 videos done today, and I am going to get maybe this one, but I am extremely happy with how well that welder welds, with how well this project is going, and we will be tapping the rest of our trees and collecting sap in no time. Now, let's get these old rotten trailer lights out, get new LED lights in. I gotta drill a new hole because I have a new plan. I'm gonna run it across that bar instead of the back. But we are getting dangerously close to having the coolest sap collecting trailer I've ever built. That's not going anywhere, baby. All right, now we're gonna replace these tail lights. I've had this trailer for probably 15 years and just used it for random things over the years. These tail lights have never worked correctly. I'm gonna run the wires differently, and I just bought all new wire, all new LED tail lights, so I don't have to deal with them anymore. Oh, that apparently is not connected. Goodness. So that nut is stripped off inside this tail light, and my gosh, it does not want to come off. I would have think this would have broke off fairly easily. Good night. There we go. Wowzers. That's crazy. Bent my bracket. I'm hoping these new tail lights will bolt right on here. Let's see if this side comes off better. Much nicer when the bolts aren't stripped out inside the plastic housing. All right, well, this is going to make running it easier, and I also can see why these old lights never worked. This was inside the tongue here, and it is completely destroyed, probably by mice. I have waged war on mice, and I'll show you guys the best mouse killing tool I've ever found in an upcoming video. But this was all one strand hooked together. These are 2 separate strands, so I can just split it in the trailer and it'll go a lot easier. And in fact, I don't think I'm even going to run it through that tongue. I was going to use this wire to draw it through, but I think I'm just going to go down into these channels because it's split and run it from here. And I don't even have to drag it back through here, and it'll keep the mice hopefully from nesting in there, because as I pull this out, you can see, well, these wire clips that they give you, or splices, aren't any good, I don't think. They're all chewed up also. But there's a bunch of nuts and whatnot in there from the mouse nest, so we'll just eliminate that portion of it altogether. So this kit from Amazon, it gives you marker lights, tail lights, wiring for the both ends, which I don't need this end, little clips to clip it down to the trailer frame. I mean, it has everything you need in it. And I'm glad I bought it because I thought, well, I'll just fix those wire connections at the end, which is the ones I thought was bad. I didn't know it was bad inside here, so I'd have been battling that for a while. So this I will bring here, make sure I have plenty. And then once I get this down, I will clip this into the trailer frame, get the new lights on, and we are just about sap collecting. Now I am curious, they give you this ground wire that goes to the frame here. Why not just put the little circle connector on it, which I have and I'll put to it, but I mean, that to me would be easier. All right, now with the wires ran and the lights prepped, we are going to mount the tail lights and then use the shrink tube connector, I guess butt connectors, to put them on instead of the connectors they give you. They give you just regular wire nuts and these ones that like cut through the outside of the wire. I'm not a fan of either, especially for something like this that's going to be outside for its entire life. So you just take these connectors, slide them over your wire, and there's a little piece of solder inside of it. So what I like to do is overlap my wires inside, and then when you heat it, it shrinks, seals it so it's watertight, and connects the wires. Takes a little more effort than the traditional butt connectors, but I think it's worth it. Get this one pushed back together since I pulled it apart. And then just heat them both up. And you can probably see them shrinking, and then you'll see that solder will just shrink down. And once you see the solder melt together, you know you're good. There we go, we'll get that tucked under there when it cools down a second. Flip this around, new safety chains welded on, mount the tote, and we're good. All right, so here I got the safety chain run through this little stop, so I just need it to be held in place. This weld job that I'm doing right now isn't actually holding the chains to the trailer, it's just holding them in there. So I just got to tack it on real quick. Man, just a quick job like this, you still want those arm sleeves on. All right, I'll tell you what, I am pretty happy with that Arcaptain Mig. I don't know if you can see that, but that's not going anywhere, especially because all I need to do is hold it there. But I'll have more info, a full review on that welder coming up. All right, it is on and everything fits. These are the Bad Dog drill bits. They work okay, but I already broke one, and they're just, like I said, I don't think the value's there. All right, well, like with just about everything I do, that took a lot longer than I had planned. I should have been tapping and collecting for the last couple of days, but a couple things came up and I'm just now finishing it, but I did call an audible. We're putting the bigger tires on it, so it's gonna be a little higher, and it was too high to dump in from the ground. So we'd either have to stand on the fender, or I had a scrap treated 2x4 and a scrap piece of treated plywood. So I put the 2x4 in. I'm just gonna throw 2 screws in there, 1 in the back, and I'm also gonna tie this thing down, because even though I put these brackets on to hold it into place, which will keep it from shifting, I got to thinking, if this thing's full of sap and I have to hit the brakes hard or something, these will just rip apart. So I got a strap on the front, and I'm gonna run one through the back to these hooks, so it'll just be a little more secure. So that is now secured. All right, so there it is, the currently finished product. You can see there I have tail lights. I've got this platform to stand on. I can take this top off, put the funnel top on with the strainer for collecting. That'll keep all the debris out. And then to store it overnight or to haul it, put this one back on. What do you guys think? Is this gonna be a pretty decent little sap collection trailer? The bigger tires will sink into the mud a little less when I get those put on tomorrow. Safety chains ready to go. Let me know what you guys think. How many gallons do you think I can get in it on this trailer and still tow good and be safe? And what'd you think of the build? Do you like stuff like this? Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.